Own the Road with Kelly and Bob is brought to you by Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings. Made in America, made to last. Coming up on this episode...
I advise young artists now, I always say, you go out there and get salty and have something to say.
Hi, we're Kelly
and Bob Phillips, and we're on the perpetual road trip of America's back roads,
where the journey is always the destination. Hi, and thanks for joining us for this episode of Own the Road with Kelly and Bob. I'm Kelly Phillips.
And I'm Bob Phillips. And as you know, Kelly, you and I love artists. Mm-hmm. We love what they are all about. All kinds of artists doing all kinds of art.
Yes, we do. But let's face it, it's kind of hard to talk about art when the listeners can't see the art we're talking about.
That's true. But what about if what we are talking about has every bit as much to do with their passion for art as it does for the art itself?
Well, that makes sense. Just like the artist we met recently in Lander, Wyoming.
I think I've always been drawn to art, but I had a very practical Missouri upbringing. It's like, you've got to make a living. So I grew up in Ferguson, Missouri, north suburb of St. Louis, and I had a pretty much leave it to beaver sort of childhood, barefoot all summer playing with neighborhood kids. And I was drawn to going down the ditch to the railroad tracks because it felt wild, or the park that was nearby. I moved out here after college for adventure and to get out of the Midwest. I came out here and never looked back. I actually came out here so I could afford a horse.
You had to have a horse?
Yeah, that was sort of how I was born.
To put all of this into the proper perspective, Jenny Reeves-Johnson grew up in the Midwestern United States and was what we would have called back then a hippie artist chick. And we mean that in the kindest way. She had a mind of her own. She did not want to play follow the leader. She wanted to make her own path in life. She wanted to be an artist.
But, and we hear this time and time again, some people warned her against that pursuit because, well, you can't really make a living as an artist, can you?
Late in high school, I took some art courses, but I stayed away from them because it wasn't practical in my family. But I was drawn to it, that's a good word, but it was pretty late. It was my junior and senior year, and I took one course, and then senior year I took as many courses as I could fit in, and then went to a small university, University of Tulsa, and majored in art, and most of it was a good experience. That really turned me on to different things in art, and the clay was something I took to, but I had to make a living. So I got certified to teach, and in those days it was like a couple courses and you had to student teach. So I told my professor, I don't want to live in Tulsa, I don't want to live in any city. Don't place me student teaching in something that's not going to prepare me for the rural life I want. So I said, how about that place that you mentioned in a lecture? It was on a reservation, and he goes, oh, it's Wyoming. It was Arapaho. And I said, place me there. I got placed out here, lived with a math teacher, and got the job the next year. I moved to Wyoming in 1974 to student teach on the Wind River Reservation. And I fell in love with the Lander area and came back the next year with a job, 74 through 77, 78, and I opened a studio with 3 other artists, and they were all potters, and I was a potter, and we were production potters. And it was right in this building. In 1970s.
In this same building.
In this
that
very
we're in right now.
Room. Yeah, and isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
More than 50 years ago.
Jenny had left her life in suburban St. Louis and landed a job teaching art on an Indian reservation in Wyoming. She was still pretty much a kid, that young hippie artist girl, when she was given an incredible assignment.
They didn't even have an art teacher. So I was teaching art, this blonde co-ed from the Midwest. And really with just a lot of energy to make it work and loving it. They created a job, and I got the job the next year. While I was there teaching, and I taught through 78, they hired me, the tribe and the school hired me to paint portraits of the oldest living Arapaho. And of course, I just thought, I can do this, but
What an honor.
I know, it was a huge honor, and I get nervous just thinking about it because that's how I felt, but I did it, and I could do it. And the two portraits are still hanging in the school. One was Francis Sitting Eagle.
Jenny had also established an art studio with some other artists. The place was called Cat's Cradle, but then life got in the way. She and her husband needed to make a living, so they took jobs as ranch caretakers, and all that job includes.
But Jenny never gave up on the job that feeds her soul. She kept up with her art the whole time she was away, and being an artist that specializes in wildlife, found inspiration in her surroundings.
Specifically, the last ranch, the B4 Ranch up on the Beartooth Highway, is right outside the northeast entrance to Yellowstone. It bordered National Forest and it bordered wilderness. And then 7 miles it bordered on the highway. The last 3 miles it bordered on the backcountry, the park. We had grizzlies, we had wolves, and all the other things that come out of Yellowstone. Those are the ones you'll know about. And then we also had tourists on the Beartooth Highway in the summer. I always kept up my art, even though I quit teaching. I didn't have a studio. After Cat's Cradle, I married, and we managed ranches all around the West. I kept a studio. I kept my potter's wheel.
These days, Jenny finds herself back here in Lander, Wyoming, the place she escaped to when she left the Midwest after college. And once again, she's making a living as an artist. She reflected on that while showing us a picture of the good old days. Is it like coming home to where you started?
I'm more of a person that lives in the present, and I'll reflect on that. You can come back here and see some pictures. This is me in front of the studio in 1977. And
oh my gosh.
The dog is Chicory, that's me, and that's Cat's Cradle. This is an art district now, this block, so that's pretty cool. And we just happen to be here, but we're one of the reasons it became that, because it's well established.
What are you working on now?
Okay, keeping true to my conservation passion, I'm presently working on a mural in the form of a kiosk, and it's 5.5 foot panel by 2 feet, and it's all handmade clay tiles, and I'm one of 6 artists. The theme of the public art piece is a healthy Posher River ecosystem. So the kiosk is going to sit on a small park behind the Chamber of Commerce, right on the riverbank, and it's part of what the city has as a river walk. And so what's creating the shallow water versus back here, the deeper water, is the beaver on his dam.
And his dam that he's created.
Yes. The title of my message, or the theme, is how important the beaver is. And that is such a weak bunch of words for something so important. This was perfect fit for the moment for me, and I encouraged the rest of the group to go for it. And I think at first they were like, oh my God, but they have embraced it, and the quality of art that all these artists are producing is really a high bar. So this is going to be a very special public art piece. That's why I'm guaranteeing this public art piece for 400 to 4,000 years. People need that in our world now. You need to have things in your culture and in your life that make you feel the richness of the human experience, because it ain't happening a lot when you walk out the door. Art it's what's lasting, and it's what's rich.
And I have to say that Jenny Reeves-Johnson is both an incredible artist, someone who is obviously at the top of her game, and a great interview because she's very playful about her art and her life.
Let's listen to the rest of our conversation with Jenny.
Was there ever any culture shock or anything when you leave Missouri and Oklahoma and move to a reservation to teach?
I didn't live on the reservation. I lived outside of Lander on a ranch, a homestead. But in hindsight, I can say there was. But at the time, it was just life.
And you were a kid.
And I was a kid.
And you embraced
just
it.
Just embracing it. And I got my horse right away off the reservation.
Are these some of your students?
Yes, these were my students. And we were going out and collecting cow pies to fire pottery in a pit.
That's what you used for the fire.
Yeah, you do that. Some of the pictures I sent you are of that type of firing. So of course they're all going, ew, and I'm going, no. Anyway, so they're picking up, and I said, you all stand there, let me get a picture. This is Bruce Cook. He's a friend of mine now. He's an artist. I haven't been in contact personally with any of these other kids, but he still lives out here, and I see him now and then.
Do you realize, have you ever stopped to think that you may have started his journey into art?
Yeah, and kids come in, and I taught at the high school one year, and they come in, and they're also old, grandpa-y, but they will tell me that I made a big, and I had no idea at the time.
Yeah, but what does that mean to you now?
It's cool, makes you feel good, but it makes me think about who had influence on me.
Who did have influence on you?
Probably my brother and my family convincing me to seek adventure, and this times, early 70s was when I graduated from high school, bouncing out of the 60s and wanting to have a voice, but the voice wasn't nearly as strong. And
it was a different time, wasn't it?
Very different, very different.
But we lived through it.
Yeah.
And we're here.
Yeah, great experience, and just didn't know, because I was right out of college, that was probably the best teaching job on the planet. I had a drawing table and all the tools and supplies you carry around with you as an artist from ranch to ranch. And we managed ranches for absentee owners, and often we were doing it to bring a ranch back that had been overused, abused. We were sort of conservationist ranchers helping bring back a ranch. So every artist knows that everything on their panel has to suggest teaching people about what can appear and what should appear on a healthy Paposia River ecosystem. So some of this will appear more readily north of town or upriver from town, and a little bit downriver too. Almost everything on my panel gets seen in town one time or another, even the moose. There's the underwater scene with the Yellowstone cutthroat, and here's
that's
gold
the fish
trout.
here?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Of course, a water ouzel, or a American water ouzel. We call them dippers. These are larva stage flies, dragonfly, and here's an adult dragonfly. And then you can see the rocks underwater, because this is shallower water. A lot of where the feed is for these fish. This one's eyeing to go for the dragonfly. So I'm passionate about the beaver. I've done a lot of work for the beaver in raising money for mitigation, because they want to live where we want to live. And as a rancher, you have irrigation systems, you have a river feeding your irrigation. They choose to build, it changes your whole world, it floods your road, it takes all your profit, it floods a field. That's not good. So there are ways to deal with beaver other than killing them. You know, I'll admit sometimes there's just no other recourse if it's taking your livelihood.
But you can relocate them, right?
You can, but you just can't relocate every beaver. That's a problem. That's a pipe dream, and that's something to shoot for, but the reality hits. But you don't make those excuses right away. You work hard, and that's what I want to convince people is, like, try to make it work. I go out to different people that need help. I keep my horses on a ranch, and I've been covering trees for the owner of the ranch where the beavers have built. Protects the aspen. They don't take the cottonwood and some of the other trees that are there, and they eventually move on if there's not enough feed, if they're in a problem area like that. But there are places on that ranch and above and below the ranch where they can exist and be fine, and humans can live right with them, and they have been. Other ranchers are embracing it. I don't know if you've read any conservation articles about this, but it's being brought to the forefront of information that we're having a lot of wildfires, longer seasons, and that where the beaver lives offers green space and safety for wildlife, humans, and everybody else, because they're allowed to be there. There's green space, and they've kept it green, but they have the water is close to the water table. We could talk about beavers for a long time. I'm not a scientist. I have a really close friend who is the biologist specialist in beaver in this area, and I've spent a lot of time with her. We've got a great relationship, so I've learned a lot, and I keep asking, and I keep observing.
There's definitely a message in your art here.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the funding we got without a problem, but they were saying, we'll give you this, but we need it to be educational. We want to have a purpose that it's promoting conservation and everything. So I'm thinking I have a tile I'm going to put here, and I'm thinking I'm going to write concisely, beautifully, I hope, about the beaver and what I'm trying to say, but I haven't composed it yet.
Is this kind of thing part of the reason you wanted to be an artist?
Somebody asked me that recently about, would you be doing art even if you weren't selling? Or I think once you do it and get established and understand what it's about, I've never quit. I've just been, my day jobs would be consuming. I had a daughter that was consuming. I trained stock dogs, I trained horses. Took time away, but I'm always involved in some sort of art. Or I'm driving and I'm thinking, oh, that's an incredible scene for a landscape. Oh, and while I was at the ranch near Yellowstone, I kept my camera on my lap, going anywhere, and drive with my knee to get the grizzly that was not very far away, or a moose, and yeah. So yeah, this moose is from up on the Beartooth, from my photos. And so I'm always thinking about it if I'm not involved in a project. Let me show you this panel over here.
Sure.
The drawing of it here is how this panel started. This is a life-size 2 feet by 5.5 feet, the same measurement as this panel that was made to house the clay. This panel in wet clay, I want it to stay wet so you can see how I've wrapped it, because I'm still working on it. 2 of the tiles are over there, and the 2 tiles that are over there are these 2 right here. So you'll see that I've mostly finished these tiles except for the waterfall. And here's the picture I'm working with. This is the waterfall up the Pocosia, and this is during spring, so there's a lot of water. So loosely defined, this is the same drawing. Here's the waterfall. And I'll sculpt the waterfall coming down. I'll braid it with ripples, and I'll put water here too. Right, so you get all sorts of tricks on how to keep it moist. So this is the top of it, minus those 2 tiles.
This is still wet clay?
Yes. Yeah,
So
it's called,
fire.
yes, it's called leather hard. You can sculpt it. You can see how I've sculpted the geese. Each piece is very firm, and you can handle it. You've really got to handle these large pieces carefully, not to bonk any of these sections that stick out, because it may not show, but you may put a little fracture hint in it, which would grow in the firing. They fire to over 2,000 degrees, 2,200. It's called Cone 6 stoneware. The frame is a piece of art.
Itself.
And I'm thinking, and we're going to put art in it, and it's just going to stand there. It's just going to be a huge presence.
You said something about this lasting 400 to 4,000 years.
Yeah.
You really?
Oh yeah.
You're serious.
It may be washed down the river with some mega flood that we can't anticipate, but the pieces will be here. It's
Because
fired to over 2,000 degrees.
And we've
Look
found,
at Pompeii. what's left.
Yeah. Archaeologists
Yeah.
find things that age
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, and rock art, obviously, and clay art is what's here when everything else.
That's
Goes
almost
back.
daunting to me.
Yeah.
That you're doing something, you're going to leave a piece of yourself.
And that's part of the passion you get when you're making a statement. It's like, if nobody buys us or pays attention now, somebody will someday. My daughter's going to have a lot of things in her place.
Look at how advanced thinking she was.
No, I mean, you don't actually live your life with that in mind. For instance, I did tell one of the artists who was just going to put her stamp on her piece, and I said, no, put your full name, because you're going to have great-great-grandkids come to Lander and find that on here. So you're going to be long gone, and no one's going to know what that little logo looks like and what it means.
Yeah.
But if you put your full name, your great descendants. And
What does that mean to you that people are going to know who you are and
Well-
maybe even get your message?
it means, the message means a lot, but it doesn't mean anything.
You don't care whether they remember you or at all.
By
do you?
then I won't care.
You don't even care now, I don't think. I think
Well,
you want them to like your art and
Yes,
its message.
and the message, and embrace it. That's true. I would like to make a living. I mean, I'm a realist. I would love to sell everything I have, but I want it to sell and mean something. So that's why I get involved in the beaver, and I give back a percentage of every piece of art about the beaver goes into a fund to Wyoming Wetlands Association, who then has it earmarked in the special account for the Wyoming Game and Fish for beaver mitigation. And that means working with ranchers and property owners with beavers to make it that they can work with them or relocate them.
That's called putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, and it gives more oomph to the piece of art. I want it to be enjoyed and as a beautiful piece of art or interesting or intriguing, and then have more punch. I think many artists will agree with me. You can't possibly charge what you need to reimburse you if you want to do all the accounting of what it took to make this,
You'll never get
including
no.
rent, power to fire, rent on the kiln shed, $5,000 in a kiln minimally.
The number of hours.
What did it take for me to be able to get here? You don't want to measure that. When you do have more of a punch and you can't charge $6 million for this piece, you do know that it's meaning something and you're getting some compensation. But that meaning helps the worth that isn't happening with the money.
What is art to you? What's the definition?
No,
Your definition.
give me a better question.
No,
No.
come on now. I want to know what your
Everybody has a different answer
What
for
is
that.
art?
I'm gonna give,
What is
I'm gonna
art?
give you one.
What is life?
What is life?
Yeah. What is art? What is it? Art's every time you turn around, but it's I don't know. I'm not going to say what art is. It's probably what it is at the moment to me. So it's
Especially that to me part,
not. Yeah.
because that's what's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is it to you? You're the
Right.
artist,
Right.
not me. You are.
But I would like everyone else to want it and like it. But what is art, man? That's a question from the 60s.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
I've been asking that
Good
question
man.
almost that long.
What is art?
Sit around a campfire
Yeah.
and bond, okay?
Yeah. Doesn't matter what the answer is. It's just it's part of a human experience and soul.
You think you'll always do art all the way to the end? You can't not do it?
I can't not do it. I advise young artists now who come in and see this crazy nice setup. I mean, it's not nice, but it's got a lot of soul.
It's an art studio.
It's an
though.
art studio.
It is.
Yeah, and
Quintessential.
so
This is
somebody who
it.
wants to be an artist who's toying with it or in their office job and they see this and they're just going, oh, I may majored in art, and look what I'm doing. It's like, I tell them, it's like, oh, just wait a minute, step back, dabble in it, keep a few things going now and then, but it's okay. You don't have to do it full time to enjoy it. And then when you do have time, you'll enjoy it so much more fully. You'll have nurtured it along, and then you'll just have all these ideas you've been thinking about for 40 years, and then go for it. I always say, you go out there and get salty and have something to say. There's a lot of young people trying to make it with art, and I don't know what they have behind them to make them be able to do that, but it's a tough one because they have all these other, their young brains have a lot going on and things I want to do and so forth.
But one of the things that I love of what you said is go out there, get salty, figure out what your message is.
What's meaningful to you?
And I ended
What
up
do you want to say?
very involved in conservation, and because all of our ranches were in very rare, beautiful places in the Rockies, mainly, in the stint in California. They were our neighbors.
Did you get salty over these last years?
Very.
I loved her reaction to the what is art question.
Didn't you, though? You and I ask just about every artist we meet that same question, and it's pretty interesting how we never get the same answer, ever.
And most of them really don't want to answer it. Hey, thanks again for joining us for this week's edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, as well as our YouTube page. On the Road with Kelly and Bob. Download that free Odyssey app. Listen anytime, anywhere.